Looks like we're live. Are we live?
Hello.
I think we're live. Are you alive?
I'm alive.
Okay, I'm alive too. In the spirit of it's 5 o'clock somewhere, we have brought our adult beverages. Cheers. To the party. I'm having a mint mojito. You're having?
I'm having an ale.
An ale. He's having an ale. Fun fact, every night, right about this time, he brings me a drink. He makes me the drink of my choice, and it's his way of saying that it's time to stop working for the day.
But we're still working.
But yeah, we're still working. Actually, this is not work. This is fun.
Okay.
I'm having fun. This is like my party face. See? Because I have my...
Because you always party.
This is my drink du jour. It's always like, actually, it's like drink to life. It's called a mint mojito. I have it every single night because he's awesome like that. Well, what we wanted to talk about today, we wanted to talk about education and understanding the housing market, because we get like one consistent mark with all of our buyers, always the same. What is it?
How not to overpay.
Yes. So our buyers,
they're worried about overpaying.
They're worried about overpaying, right? They're worried about being upside down. And really, I can't think of a buyer lately that hasn't, had that fear.
Yeah.
They just don't want to, they're worried about a cost correction. They're worried that the market's going to crash. And they're just in general worried because, values went up so fast, and they did.
Well, and the economy is kind of volatile.
Yeah. Yeah. So in fact,
in different areas.
In fact, let me show that. I want to show you guys that because we went through, let me see here now. I want to show you that because, like, if you know me, I love my slides.
Data.
It's all about the data. It's about the data, man. Always. So I made this data slide. It shows the entire MLS, okay, from 2003 to the present. And it shows median sales prices, right? And it shows that they've always gone up. They have like always trended up. Like you can see, you have like little dips, you can tell like we have these dips where, let's see if that shows it up. Nope, that didn't do it. Here, this is what I want to do. You can kind of see that we always have dips, right? Seasonal dips, but overall the values have always they've continually gone up. Interesting fun fact. Okay. Right here, this place all the way back here, you never had rates below 5%. Like they were always higher. They were like, like when we first bought a home, it was like 7%. Yeah. And sometimes it was really, really high, but never. And then you have like 2008 and the Fed decides that they want to, they decide they want to jump in and mess with rates. Right. And so that's where you see this big change in what home prices did in Dallas. And that's when the Fed decided, we were having like that 2008, mortgage meltdown, and the Fed decides to jump in. Oh, we have a comment. Y'all are a vibe. We're a vibe. Yay, we're a vibe. We're cool. We just need our teenagers to agree with that. Okay. So then
we're always cool.
We are. We're very cool. I think so too. It's like cool realtors.
Anyway.
So from that time forward, like from when the Fed, started messing with rates, we still saw like a constant appreciation, but you can see it's more aggressive. And that's because the money's cheaper. When the money's cheaper, people pay more. But then we came to COVID.
Yeah.
The big COVID, right? And that's when the Fed, in their beautiful wisdom, they dropped rates, their targeted rate down to like 0. And that's the point. This is the point that everybody, thank you, Rhonda. She says,
so cute.
She says, you're so cute together. We are so cute together. That's the point where everybody gets freaked out, right? Because that's where we saw this and it really, that's really not a natural jump in price. Okay. It's not honestly, right? Home prices are really not supposed to go up that fast. And
at least not here.
Yeah. And so what we got was fear, right? Everybody saw it go up, knew that wasn't natural. They're like, and it brings a lot of fear. And that's what we get from our buyers. It's like, we don't, this wasn't natural. What goes up must come down, right? I mean, that's the theory. And this is what they all want.
They want to come back to pre-2020.
Yes. Oh, so many of our buyers are like, we want to buy at 2020 prices.
When will that happen?
Yeah, we want to buy. And really, arguably, if the Fed hadn't intervened, I mean, like that's where there's no reason for us to be as high as we are. But I mean, it kind of like what's done is done, like the Fed raised it. We had this period of cheap money. In fact, interesting, what's going on is
sellers don't like FHA loans.
Okay, I have no idea where that came from.
I'm not sure why.
Batman, I'm
like
so
FHA
confused. Yeah,
loans.
I don't know. Sellers don't. Well, there is some truth to that. Like that is so far
Depends
off
on
topic.
the seller. Depends on the home.
Yeah, I mean, well, usually conventional loans have more cash. That's really, conventional buyers will usually have a bigger cash down payment. FHA loans are pickier.
I've seen high down payments with FHA because FHA had lower rates.
Yes. Cheers to lower rates. All right.
So.
Let me see. Where was I? So, okay. I was going to tell you. So before 2008, when the rates were never below 5%, and that's where we are now. And if you look right here, when the rates were never below 5%, that's when, that's when.
You're welcome.
Okay, Batman's having a fun conversation with us. I just got taught that today. Well, you're right. Yeah. Okay. I know that's off topic, but okay. But really.
Well, yeah, it is a completely different topic. And it does come to like, for instance, when we've had listings and we are talking over offers with our sellers or seller clients, and we do talk about which buyers look like they are better buyers than others. So, and you look at what kind of financing they have and how much you're putting down and all those kind of things. Yes, that is true. But back to the real data here.
But no, I was going to say too that a lot of times FHA will qualify with a lower credit score, right? And so conventional is going to require a higher credit score. So, like if a seller has a realtor who's like educating them on that, I see FHA and I'm going to think, okay, what's their credit score? And that doesn't necessarily ring true because somebody with excellent credit.
That's why we always call the buyers lenders for our sellers.
Yeah, I mean, and it's sometimes you can have a buyer that has excellent credit, but FHA has the lower interest rate. So, little tidbit there. But interesting thing about this, as I wanted to point out, is like here we are. All of this is when rates were above 5%. Okay, they were never below 5%, and you got that stability,
at least higher than now.
Yeah, you got that stability. You got seasonal increases and drops, but you had stability. And so now here we are, and we are, above 5%. Let me show you this. Right, historically, this is what we see. Rates above 5%. All right, let's take a closer look right here. Okay, in June of 2022, okay, this was like at our apex of Fed-induced craziness.
You like craziness.
Yeah, the median sales price was $400,000, right? And so that was like at the very height of, let's buy, with a 3% interest rate, just cheap money. And then we saw this huge drop. We saw like a negative 12%. So a 12% drop when the Fed raised those rates. And I think that was like when everybody was like, yes, here it is. Bring back 2020, baby.
Well, I mean, so during that low interest rate time, there were a lot of buyers that normally would not have been able to afford homes, be able to afford homes. And there were a lot more. So that means the higher demand and the inventory didn't keep up. And so, yes, there was that's supply and demand. That's your typical thing. So, that's economics 101.
Yeah.
But
cheap money.
So
thanks,
then,
Fed.
and then the prices,
it's all about buying power.
Dropped.
Anyway, so I think at that point, if we were going to see a crash, right? And that's what we all hoped for. We were all hope for is kind of mean, but I mean, we wanted to see prices go back down to like 2020. But unfortunately, what happened was prices went back up again.
Just an adjustment.
What I think what really happened here was like we adjusted down, but we just didn't adjust all the way down as people would have liked. Like we would have liked to have seen
correction.
Yeah, like we would have seen. We wanted. That's like we wanted 2020.
I mean, some markets actually did have real corrections.
Yeah,
it's not
in Dallas.
There's too much room to build. Too many people moving in.
Right.
A lot of demand.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, so instead, that brings us to where we are today, which is we're up 6.4% from that time period. So we saw like this readjustment, and then it just kind of like restarted again, right? And which is not really what any of us wanted to see. But that I mean, I guess we did. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be a Debbie Downer. I'm just always like for the buyer, like let's get them a lower price. But that brings us to today. But actually, I want to show you guys something really interesting because this is the favor. I really am interested to hear everybody's comments on this. Okay, this is the favor that the Fed did us. Okay, they call it forward guidance, and they think it's their business to go in and spur the economy. So COVID hits and they lower the rates. They create this like buying frenzy. But the thing was, they told everyone that they would start raising rates, as soon as inflation was above 2%. That's what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, they keep giving all these reasons for why they're not going to, and so actually, let me add this one on here. So by the end of 2020, the Fed inflation was well above the Fed's 2% target, and labor markets were nearing the Fed's maximum employment target. And what they should have done at that point was they should have, started lowering their change, raising their rates.
I think I've read several things about this, and I think there's the fear. They have the fear that they're going to do what they did in 2008 and not control it enough and cause major problems like we had back then. So,
So all of that brings us to now where we don't have a crashed market, but we still have inflated prices, right? Or what people are going to, and we don't want to really accept that this is the new normal. That's not what we want. Dang it. We want that. But I did want to dig into so what's going on right now in the market. So I did want to do that. Let me take a look at that. Let me bring this back. You guys are so happy, aren't you, that I have another slide?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I wanted to look at was what would lower prices right now? Where we're at right now, what would it take to get our prices to drop?
What could cause, what are the possibilities? Yes.
Yeah, what are the possibilities that could cause a price drop? Because they're there, okay? The prices, the things, and the variables that could cause prices to go down are absolutely there. And one of them, and I've made a lot of videos about this, is inventory. Yeah, inventory of homes for sale. And there is a lot of inventory out there, and we can't just deny it's there. I mean, they're just homes by the hundreds and hundreds sitting vacant, okay? And that would drive prices down. This article from Orchard says cities with the most new construction single family homes. This was in 2023. And out of the top 15, Dallas was number 2. DFW has issued 24,088 single family unit permits to date, with more than 35 of those issued in July. Okay, so that's a lot of houses.
Yep. And that was just before the rates went way up and started coming back.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a lot. And we saw it
everywhere.
Yeah,
so we had so much inventory built up by the time, and then the rates went way up and less people buying. So we had even more inventory.
So, and then the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex in North Texas combines the cities of Dallas, Fort Worth, and Arlington. This sprawling urban region is a hub for technology, finance, and healthcare industries. The area added an estimated 170,396 residents in 2022 alone. Second thing that I was really like, hey, this could really. We have a comment
with new builds.
Yeah. Okay, I can put that on there. Kat says, what is the situation with new builds in Frisco price-wise, corner of Main and 289 area and the Grove area? Well, I wish I could tell you that,
The Grove is pretty high price.
Yeah.
High demand.
Yeah. Who was it we met with? Was it Toll Brother? I'm trying to remember the builder we met with when I think it was American Legend.
Yeah,
and they were just like, we're just not coming down on prices because we don't have to, so
they know they're going to sell that. They know that people want to buy in that area. They know that Frisco is a desired area to be in. I mean, actually, in all those crowded places, there's demand. I mean, still in Plano, Allen, and then also in Frisco too. There's people want to move there.
Yeah. Well, that's our problem. Any of these areas,
big school district,
just like he ups and leaves. I mean, he hasn't fallen off the chair today. Like, what the heck, man? How much have you had to
I'm
drink anyway? You just
running
think you
away.
can get up and leave? What?
I can.
What is this? All right, Kat, we'll get into that here in a minute. Let me talk a little bit more about this, and then I will answer all you guys' questions. There's lots of questions out, which is awesome. Next thing that I really think could hugely, drop sales prices is rent inventory. And hear me out on this one, okay? Not everybody has to buy, and they may not, they may not want to buy, and there's various reasons why they would rather rent, including rent is cheaper. So check this out. Okay, nice little article by Fast Company. It says rent's too damn high. These metro areas have the most new apartments coming this year. So it's talking about metro areas. And it says, according to a recent report, 2024 and 2025 are set to be the busiest years on record for new construction of multifamily homes. Okay, so busiest years on record. And we have a significant, and this is really interesting. Okay, this is how cheap money is still like really affecting us. A significant amount of multifamily supply financed during a period of ultra low interest rates during the pandemic. Thank you, Fed, is set to become available this year. So we're kind of seeing like this delayed, event of, there was cheap money, but apartments take a long time to build, right? So they got all this cheap money, and now we're seeing the fruit of that. However, the impact of this influx of apartment supply won't be uniform across all markets. Recently, researchers at John Burns Research and Consulting published a paper finding that the biggest multifamily unit pipelines can be found in the following metros. Dallas is number one. Number one in the nation. Okay. And I believe it. I mean, even if you look in Frisco, in Frisco alone, you can just see this high density housing everywhere. I mean, and that's already like a crowded city. But everywhere you turn, you see apartments under construction. And I know like our rentals that have not gone vacant literally for years, like some of them a decade, went vacant this year. And it was like, okay, you can tell there's a softening of the market. And then when I ran, comparables to see what it would lease for, it had come down. So rent prices are coming down. And with, interest mortgage rates where they are, it's already cheaper to rent in a lot of areas. And so now you see that, not only is it cheaper to rent than to own, but Dallas is like number one in the country for new apartments. Okay. In the country. Did I emphasize that enough? In the country. Okay. So too many homes for sale, inventory way up, too many homes for rent. Right.
Yep.
And it's hitting it's all hitting now, even though it started, back when rates were low, but it's hitting now. I know we've got a lot of comments. We'll get to those in a minute though.
Okay.
Okay. What else is going to cause prices to go down? These are a little bit more of a wild card. Okay. The economy.
You never know what could happen with the economy.
I mean, if we see like mass unemployment and foreclosures, right, that would do it. Yeah. It's just that what we're seeing is like the economy's not cooling down enough.
Yeah.
Really. Because I think a lot of people thought that rates were going to come down in March. You know? I mean, that was the general thought. And it's like, then we get reports and then this one and then this one. And this isn't low enough. So to me,
that's a whole new story on those reports. Different story on all those reports. So
we could talk about that next week. That's a good idea. Anyway, those are wild cards. Could they bring prices down? Yes. They're more hypothetical, like the interest rates. Are they really going to go down? I think in order for the interest rates to really come down, you'd have to see something massive go on.
And I think that would cause prices to go up, honestly.
Yeah. So
be more demand.
So I think our big driving forces for why we would see, home prices come down all has to do with inventory. Sales inventory way up, rent inventory ridiculously up.
Well, the other part about the economy, I guess it could be it has again to do with jobs. You kind of mentioned it. It's like if the economy is bad and then all these big companies that moved to Dallas Fort Worth because this is a great place to work and everything and do business, and they were to be hurting, and then they'd start cutting, laying off and all that, then that might, it might fewer people come in here and stuff. So that might do it.
But being the realist that I am, and I'm always like, people lie, numbers don't. I'm going to give you the counterbalance now. Those are the reasons why we could see prices go down, right? And with those reasons alone, if we were like in a static market, Those reasons right there ought to be driving prices like way down. Okay. But let's take a look at this. Okay. All right. What would be bringing prices up? And by the way, do you like my cute little arrows?
That's really cute.
Yeah, I thought that was really
They're
nice.
kind of bouncy.
I know. I mean, you got your whole little seesaw, and one of them's
Mhm.
going down, one of them's going. I thought it was pretty cool.
I guess.
Like this may be Canva may be my favorite part of being a realtor. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
It's a lot of fun.
Wow.
All right.
So artistic.
Yeah, I know, it really is. So what can bring values up? Okay. And these are two big ones. Okay. Migration, meaning people moving into Dallas, and then companies moving into Dallas. Okay.
Mhm.
And so those things, if you think about that, like if we just had, like I said, a static market where nobody's moving here, okay, and we had inventory piling up, that would prices would drop for sure. But instead, we have, so let's look at some articles about this. Austin and Dallas, Fort Worth tipped as top US housing markets for 2024. Texas cities bracing for surge in home buying interest. North Texas grapples with prices that hover near their peak, even with a slight dip of 1% to 2% in the region. Dallas's narrative includes one of the steepest climbs in home prices over the past decade. And we don't like it. That we would just really, I don't know. I just really don't want that to happen. As more people move into the area and more companies relocate to the region, prices look like they're going to continue to rise. This is from Yun. He said this in his cautionary note to potential buyers. Another article, Austin, and this one's by National Association of Realtors. Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, seen as nation's top 2 home markets in 2024. Houston, number 6. Okay. 2 Texas markets, Austin and Dallas, are forecast to be the country's top housing markets in 2024. That's the latest forecast from the National Association of Realtors, which calls out metro areas it expects to see the most housing demand next year. Oh, and then we have this one. Okay, we're talking about migration.
There you go.
DFW tops 8
8
million
million residents.
total residents, as long as they don't move in my backyard. The Metroplex has solidified its status as one of the nation's fastest growing metro areas, according to a new study by the Texas Demographic Center. The Free Cities Index recently named Fort Worth the nation's top pro-growth city, and DFW grew by an estimated 101,051 residents between July 1, 2022 and January 1, 2023, increasing the total estimated population to 8,060,528.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So that really kind of, I think, brings into balance this idea that we're talking about, we've got this increased inventory, more rentals, more, single family homes, just kind of almost like top in the nation. But then we also have
still tons of people moving in.
Yeah. And so
more companies moving in.
We do. We have
more
these
hiring.
Yeah. In fact, let me show you this. Families desire cities that are affordable, foster economic opportunities, and offer residents a high quality of life. Let me see here now. The Site Selection Group forecasts the population in DFW to grow to 8,479,851 by 2028, marking a nearly 9% increase over the next half decade. If the population growth in North Texas stays on track, moving services platform Move Buddha predicts the metro will be the 4th most populated region in the country. If current population growth rates continue unabated, the future of America belongs to Texas.
Wow.
Okay. And then we have yet another, when I started looking at this, there was articles everywhere. I couldn't believe it. Like this one says Texas ranks number 1 for corporate relocations. From 2010 to 2019, Dallas and Houston were the top metro areas for businesses relocating to Texas, accounting for 3/5 of all jobs moving from other states. Some of the key factors goes into this. Okay, that's a lot there. 291 companies moved to Texas between 2015 and 2024. Among the nearly 300 corporate relocations, 6,500 new jobs were added. So, and then another one, housing market. So there's so much here. Like literally, I couldn't, as I was looking, I'm like trying to find all these articles and there's everywhere. Yun pointed out that as companies converge on Dallas, bringing in a slew of new residents, the price tags on homes show no signs of plateauing. In addition, housing inventory is expected to rise by around 30%. Yes, inventory, as more sellers begin to list after delaying selling over the past 2 years.
Maybe sellers are fine figuring out, well, we'll just,
Yeah.
I want to move. I got to sell my house anyway. So just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are really, all of the reasons that I could think of that would cause, home prices to go up. Like the migration, people moving here, companies moving here. Okay. Those are big. Also the lock-in effect if sellers don't sell. I think commute could be a factor here because a lot of people are having to go back to the office.
Yeah.
Right.
That is coming up more.
Yeah. And so because I know we've gotten several buyers.
We still see a lot of home workers, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we see a lot of our home buyers saying, dang it, I don't get to work from home anymore. Guess I have to move to Plano, which is a great place to live. I'm not dissing Plano. But my point being that our areas that are closer to the commute areas, okay, they are
your higher priced areas.
Because they're landlocked.
Yeah.
You can't water down
the inventories.
Yeah, you can't water down the inventory in these areas that are closer to the hubs because they're already landlocked.
Yeah.
And so that will drive prices up. If people have to, if they're like, I can't commute from Salina to downtown Dallas, it's too far, then they're going to have to buy more locally, and that's going to drive prices up.
Get you a toll tag.
Well, not everybody wants to spend an hour in the car. He loves spending time in the car. He loves showing houses. He loves being out there. I, for one, not so much. Okay. Like he doesn't mind being in the car. That's like his thing. Anyway, so that gives you an idea of the reasons why the prices could go up, right? Let me see here. Let me add that again. Let's take another look at that. There we go. The lock-in effect, cheap money.
Yeah.
Cheap money definitely affects it as well. I really hope that the Fed does not, if they do lower rates, I just really don't want them to drop them down to where they were, because I just felt like that was such an unhealthy appreciation. That's why I feel like, maybe 7-6, but once you get below that, you saw in that chart, when you're below 5%, you just see a much more aggressive appreciation. So I'm all about, I don't know, I kind of like the rates staying because I feel like right now we've got these forces, right? They're vying against each other. And anybody that tells you, it's always a good time to buy, buy, they're ignoring the fact that we have all this inventory. But the truth of the matter is we have two opposing forces pushing against each other, and it's essentially achieving equilibrium. I mean, we would like to see the prices go down to 2020 levels, for our buyers, but we just don't have. We've got too much of those buying forces.
Historic doesn't show that we'll do that.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll go to that same rate, of up and down instead of jumping up and down. Yeah.
And I think too that this bears discussing is that our areas that are in lower demand, that are just too far for a commute, we are seeing prices go down there.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, like in like we're talking like the outskirts, okay, the exurbs, you are seeing prices go down there. But then the places that are everybody's baby, like Prosper, Salina, Frisco, harder to negotiate there because they're in high demand. And again, so like to the extent that they've got all this inventory, well, they've got all these people, that want to move there too.
Right.
Yeah. You want to answer we can answer some questions. Got a lot of questions here. Let's see here now. Let's see here now. All right. Kat asks, we were at that one. We were at this one before.
I don't know what they're asking again. What is the situation
with new builds in Frisco price wise?
What are they doing?
Corner of Main and 289.
Well, in the Grove, there's really not that much going on, looks like, right now. But the Grove is pretty much built out.
Yeah, I would say that you're just not going to see deep discounts there because that's an example of an area that's close to a commute, right? So to the extent that people are like, I have to go to Frisco just because I have to go back to the office now, Frisco is one of those areas. And then Kat asks, any breaks for cash buyers? Yes, and also no. Depends on what you're trying to buy. If you're trying to buy a new build, you get 0 breaks for having cash because they have to wait for 8 to 10 months anyway. So I have gone in strong trying to negotiate hard with my cash buyer. who wants a new build, and they're like, we don't care. We're not going to see that cash for another,
The money looks the same to them.
Yeah, it does. They're like, we have to wait 8 months anyway, so we're not going to come down. But on inventory, house, new construction, as well as pre-owned, yeah, cash definitely
Where it really
speaks.
helps is in sellers that want to close fast.
Yeah. So you evaluate.
Or they're just looking for strong buyer,
Right.
no contingencies.
Right.
Cash.
Right.
No contingencies.
Okay. Here's another one. Very interesting question. What do you think of megatel homes, the ones with the lagoons?
What lagoons?
That is the thing. That is
What
absolutely the thing. There's so much that I could say about megatel here.
I think you did a video on that, did you not? Or,
I haven't yet.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen
Coming
a
up.
lot of videos come out about megatel lately. You've got the Venetian, you've got Anna Capri. A lot of videos go out there. Man, I have some big concerns though about any place that tells you they're going to put in all these amenities and then tries to sell the houses first.
Mhm.
You know, I know like some of these communities like the Venetian, they were advertising lagoons like in 2020, you know, they were come by here. And so all these people that came and bought there thinking they were going to get a lagoon, guess what? They have nothing. They still have nothing there.
Did all the buyers get a free shovel when they moved in?
Yeah, apparently they all got to go dig the lagoon themselves. So I think anytime you see a video that's like projecting, oh, it's going to be so amazing, come by here. You need to ask some questions because, I mean, what are you going to do if they never built there? And as far as I can tell, I'm not sure. Has Megatel built a lagoon anywhere?
I don't know.
I don't know. You guys
Yeah.
Tell me. Has Megatel built a lagoon anywhere? So I'm very interested to know because I think I don't know. I shouldn't throw my opinion out there that much. But let me just put it this way: they don't have PIDs, okay, public improvement districts in these communities. How are they going to pay for all this?
Yeah.
How are they going to pay, for the lagoon?
And their low HOA.
And their HOA fees are not that high either, right? So how are they going to pay for all of these expensive amenities? Where's that money going to come from? And with these communities, you can look at them. They're not luxury communities. These are all like 400,000 or 500,000. You're not talking about like these really, affluent areas, right? And so you have no PID. I was told that it would be like a pay to get in kind of thing, kind of like Six Flags, right? That you have to just pay. So it's more like a public thing, which, do the people buying the house know that if it's ever built, the public is welcome into their neighborhood.
Nice.
So I don't know. I would just say, if you're going to consider Megatel, ask a lot of questions, because there's, like I said,
you should ask a lot of questions with every builder, but yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, the man makes a good point. That is true. But when it comes to Megatel, be really, really careful. Ask a lot of questions, get some stuff in writing, because they've just been building those houses for far too long on the promise of, hey, we're going to build a lagoon. Really, where is it? Might as well build a pool in your backyard as far as, that lagoon coming in.
Sold their home.
All right. Go ahead.
Sold our home that we built new in 2010 in Frisco. We really regret it. We miss that area so much. Yeah. I can know some other people that regret they didn't buy earlier in Frisco.
Yeah. That's
actually 2010. That'd have been a great time. Yeah. Now what is that house worth, Kat? Yeah, that's no.
Let's see here now. Adding to Kat's question, how long does it take to close on a cash offer? Actually, I was having a conversation with a buyer about this today. It can close fast because you're not talking about the lender needing to do anything, right? So you want your due diligence period yourself, and then the title company has to get their act together.
Getting title company doing the research on the title and all the property interests, and getting the HOA information. Sometimes that goes long because I think they're faster now, but I do remember there was times when it was 15 days was asking for kind of fast. The
hands are in the title company. You could close a couple weeks. It all depends on, the title company gets started and suddenly there's some hiccup or some bump in the road or something that would slow things down, but you're not depending on a lender to get their act together. So you could actually close really, really fast if it was all cash. All right, let's see here now. HH Design says things are going bad. And when they do go bad, they will get worse than people imagine.
Hmm.
So I'm interested to know what you mean by that. Like when you say things are going bad, is it the economy, housing inventory? Let's see. She also says, okay, so she also said this, or HH Design says rates will go down, but not because the Fed wants to cut, but because they won't have a choice. So that's kind of that idea behind their forward action.
Yeah.
Is that they believe when the economy has problems that they have to go in and intervene.
Yeah, because the economy doesn't fix itself.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's possible, I do think that rates are far more mortgage. Well, and that makes me wonder too, like rates, when you say that, are you talking about the Fed's rates or the mortgage rates? Because I think the mortgage rates definitely operate independently of the Fed.
They do.
They're influenced by the Fed, certainly.
But the Fed does not control mortgage rates.
Yeah,
they do not control long-term rates.
Yeah. But the mortgage rates and the 10-year bond are closely correlated. So you could very much say, that the Fed has not. So I'm not really sure what you mean by that. That would be very interesting. I'd love to hear more on that.
Maybe there is.
Let's see. Batman says Frisco will never be affordable again unless you have two doctors in house.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, it is ridiculously expensive. I mean, that's why Salina is exploding so much. People who can't afford Frisco can't afford Prosper any better. And they're like, tell me about Salina.
With Prosper in price. So
yeah. I mean,
close.
Salina
Depends
is,
on the community, but yeah.
It's not as expensive, but it is definitely going up in value. Okay. Let's see. We are in an unprecedented territory with the price to income ratio.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Yeah. I absolutely agree. And it's all, I mean, it all has to do with the Fed and their artificial rates. Their artificially low rates.
Or just and their artificial money into the economy and stuff too, in different ways.
Yeah, I completely agree with you that that the Fed has influenced it to where the values went up, and then when they pull back and they're like 7%, then we still have too much of these supply and demand forces to allow a full scale correction. I mean, it's balancing each other out. Again, if nobody was moving to Dallas, not the companies, not the relocators,
right?
I think we would really see a hurting market right now. I think we'd see a lot of price correction if we're only talking about people like within the area. But the problem is your migration, your companies. Yes, I agree. Rhonda says, go Texas. Go Dallas.
Texas, our Texas.
Oh, he's breaking forth in song. Let's see. Rin's thing, are you experiencing appraisal issues on new construction? I would imagine that some are. Our buyers don't, because we're really strict on that.
We've had one time we had an appraisal come in low on a new construction, and I know it ended up being a correction that the mortgage and the appraiser company did, that they fixed it and it was fine. But if we've heard of some nightmares from people who have over upgraded their home and added way too much cost into the
Well, and the thing is like whenever we
haven't seen it ourselves.
Well, because the first thing we do when we find a house, a buyer finds a house, like I always tell everybody, we do defense and offense. We're like the ultimate sports team. So the first thing we do is we do a market analysis, because like our defense, our protective posture is we're not going to let you overpay. Not that we can officially stop them if they just really insist, but we're going to at least tell them. We're going to tell them this house is
better have the cash.
Yeah. We'll be like, well, and sometimes we'll just tell them that. Say, listen, this is what it's worth. And of course you can overpay if you want to, but that's like our very first thing we do when they find a house is we're like, okay, what is this house worth? Because we don't want them. In new construction, you will never get a concession for an appraisal shortage. You have to bring the cash, bring it or go home. I mean, like you're not going to have a home.
She's same and on that same thing. Specifically, and I can see where you might see some appraisal issues, but especially depending on the areas where I've seen more of these custom builders out and more remote areas, Waxahachie, Burleson. I mean, even further, just other area where there's a lot of land and they're building, and I don't know. We haven't seen the appraisals on them yet, so I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Because you can see, they build these really nice modern homes, and does the area support that? Yeah,
Make sure if you're buying a 1 acre lot with a custom home, make sure that there are properties surrounding that are comparable,
Mhm.
right? That are going to support, and that goes into that market analysis too.
Not
Make
10
sure.
miles away.
Yeah. Okay.
a year back.
So, we've been working on comps on a house, and we're having a hard time with it because it's like, we're having to look 10 miles away. So if you're worried about appraisal issues, you want to buy where you're going to make sure it's surrounded by nicer homes. Right. So, and there's like, for example, I think of several communities in Salina that are like that have that 1 acre lot, really nice communities with the big, and you bring in your custom builder.
But in those areas, it's probably easier to support them because you have some very nice high-end communities up there. So.
Yeah. So you just want to make sure that where you're buying is supported. If you just make sure whatever agent you're working with, you make them give you a market analysis, because you need to be able to know what it's worth before you commit to paying for it. Let's see. Yes. Well,
no
and
HOA.
Rhonda said, thank you for the info. No HOA. I can't stand them. I believe she might be preaching to the choir on that one. I'm not so much a fan. I see that they're necessary.
It helped. It was a good idea when it first started, but they've kind of got a little out of control. But and they do help.
I see that because, what if someone, opened a mechanic shop across the street and has all these cars in his yard? I've seen that happen.
You can do that. You can control that without HOA.
That is true. That is true. Yeah. I did
restrictions. So.
Yeah, I did a whole video on that about land values and what can be controlled by what entity, whether it's the HOA or the city, so there are things you can do on that. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of HOAs, but yet I see that they're a necessary evil for people that, I know in the areas we manage a couple of properties, not a whole lot, definitely not our thing. But in those areas that are like less owner occupied, get, various like violation notices. They really are like, keep the lawn mowed, fix the fence if it's leaning, make sure you take your trash out, don't leave the basketball thing out. So various things that the HOA enforces to keep the appearance of the neighborhood looking good. So the HOA serves a purpose there.
I think it rolled past some up there.
All right, let's see. What does that man? My brother's a doctor and his wife has a non-medical doctorate, and they own nothing on a 3-story townhome in Frisco.
Wow.
I'm renting technically. Salina, it was $250,000 for my landlord to buy, but worth $421,000. It does not surprise me that. And so your landlord, of course, landlord's like, bring on that equity, man. So they have all that equity. But it hurts. It makes you really can't go backward. Wish that you could have bought back then, but that doesn't surprise me at all. And again, let's, the Fed making money cheap, and we saw this huge, leap. And instead of it going down, it's just kind of, it went, and then it went down a little bit. And then it's just kind of like, mellowed out. It's looking more like it did back, before the 2008 crash, just seeing a little bit more stability, which really makes me hope that the Fed does not lower rates a lot.
More up than.
Yeah.
And I might buy.
Running out of drink, man. All right. You said, Batman says, I may buy one in Denton for $375 tomorrow because it's way cheaper out in that city. It is. It is definitely.
But it is growing that way now. Well, and there's probably, I think there's a lot of inventory out there though. There are, we know some communities out there we've been looking at, and the inventory is definitely a lot of inventory.
Yeah. We've sold some homes there. One of our buyers got a great deal on a forward commitment, low interest rate in Denton. So they definitely have. There's a whole explosion of new construction along that north and west side. And a lot of people don't kind of go in that direction because the schools aren't as good, but they're not horrible either. And you've got a ton to choose from. That's where you see a lot of your overexposed builders is on that north and west side, because everybody wants prosper in Salina. But over on that side, you've got affordable and you've got way more bargaining power. All right, let's see here now. So that man, $17 a month for an HOA. I mean, that I'm sure you don't have amenities like a fancy pool or tennis courts or anything like that. But I mean, that's not bad at all for knowing that the neighborhood's going to hopefully be maintained, right? And that you won't have, lots of fences falling down and things like that. My Vegas landlord paid nearly $300 a month for a condo. Is that for HOA fees? Wow, that's wild.
Wow. Yep.
Let's see here now. Thank you for the insight. I appreciate you both. Lots of homes are being built in the community, but most of the homes never hit the MLS because they're bringing their own builders. So do you mean
Their
that
own buyers?
do you mean their own buyers, right? That the builders are finding their own buyers?
Maybe.
That would make more sense because that's pretty common. I talk about that a lot, how what you see on the MLS is like teeny tiny tip of the iceberg for what's actually out there for new construction.
For new construction, yeah.
Yeah, like really, you're not even, when you look at the MLS, you're not even remotely seeing what's actually available in new construction. That's why there's like all this inventory, just like so much inventory. One thing we do like for our buyers is we build out like this new construction spreadsheet that shows everything, right? And then, our buyers leave comments and we go through there and talk about it. But it's like, I can't tell you. I mean, I don't know how many of our houses like that we sell are never even on the MLS,
Yeah.
They just, because we go up there, we find, more inventory than what's on there and our buyers end up going with one of those. Yeah. And let's see here now. We're great. Thank you. You guys are great. You're so great. Oh, that's so wonderful. Okay. I might need another drink. That just makes me so happy. All right. Let's see here now. Laugh out loud. Almost 2,500 square foot. HOA, yes. Nearly 300 a month for the old HOA. Honestly, that's not that high. You will pay that much in some areas in the metroplex.
Well, condo stuff too, especially because they take care of everything. But yeah.
Rin's thing says, you purchase your lot and then you bring your own builder. Yes. We know exactly what you're talking about.
States. Okay.
Know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. And I'll tell you what's really hard about that is since people are buying their own lots, you have a hard time gaining the sales information, right? What does the house actually sell for? That's a tough one. That's a really tough one because, what you'll see is like the land sold. You'll see what the CADs and the appraisers will have a good idea of what the land is worth. But yeah, you're going to have a hard time and an appraiser is going to have a hard time. But what you can do, I've done this personally in the past, is you can ask them, hey, how much did you pay? Can I see a copy of your settlement statement? I used to use that to get, when I was protesting property taxes, I would get the settlement statement and use that to protest. And so that's what you're going to run into if there's no way to document sales, right? So an appraiser is going to have a hard time. So it is true. You're not going to, if it's by lot only, bring in custom builder. And I would say too, like keep with what's homogenous to the neighborhood. What are they doing? Don't go overboard. Okay. If what's homogenous to the neighborhood is 3,000 square foot, you probably don't want to go with 5,000 square foot, right? Try to stay with what's equal to the neighborhood. And eventually you're going to have houses that sell there, but it's not going to help you buy now if it's a completely new, subdivision. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if we have any other comments. One thing I was going to talk about, I thought about talking about this is like, to the extent our buyers are worried about being upside down, and which is a valid fear. I get that. You had to think about like, when does it affect you most when you're upside down? Right. I mean, we were upside down.
When you sell?
Yeah. It affects you when you sell. We were upside down in 2008. Okay. So, we paid $280 for our house, like back in 2004. And then the mortgage meltdown happened. And I was able to go up to the central appraisal district and negotiate our value down to 230. And so part of me was just like, this is so great. Like, look how much we're saving on property taxes. And then part of me was like, oh, I can't believe the values have gone down that much, and so it was a bummer, but at the same time, like, we profited from, paying lower property taxes. So I think the big thing there is that it was only a passive loss because we didn't have to sell. And so really the big difference, if you're ever, when you have this fear of being upside down, it really only affects you when you have to sell, when you're forced to sell, get in financial trouble for whatever reason. That's when you're going to run into, upside down really stinks. I had a buyer sometime last year who called really upset. She had overpaid for her home and she didn't realize that at the time. She starts meeting all the neighbors and finds out that their house has more than hers. And she had paid more.
Mhm.
And so she was so upset, and she was like, I don't know, she was kind of almost crying on the phone. And she's like, I just want to get out. I want to get out of this neighborhood. I want to start over. But she couldn't, because she wasn't necessarily just upside down, but she owed exactly what
Right.
the area
Yeah.
was worth. And so she was stuck there. And granted, her reason wasn't a financial motivation, right? She wasn't in trouble. She was just
Yeah.
really upset. And when I asked her, I was like, okay, well, tell me what happened. And she's like, my realtor pushed me. The realtor and the sales consultant together
No way.
pushed me into buying this house. And she goes, I guess my realtor just got tired of looking at houses, and she just pushed me in. I mean, so that's an example of where being upside down can impact you. But I think overall, you just want to make sure that you're not going to get into that situation, right? I don't know, several things you can do to make sure you don't get into that situation. Like, for example, don't get FOMO when you're looking at a house. Do not get so, so excited that you go in and you let emotion take over.
Yeah.
Walk away from the whole.
We're not sure.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to walk away. And anytime you're like being pressured and they're like, oh, multiple offer situation, man, just walk away, because there's enough inventory. If you're buying in the center close to the commute hubs, that's a little harder.
Or is there something very specific you're looking for, maybe? But yeah.
Yeah. So, be thinking about the things that could put you in trouble, that could make you have to sell, right? And try to make sure that when you're buying, you don't get in that. So, so you don't want to overpay by either getting like all emotional, big thing, okay, that I have seen in new construction. This one really makes me mad, is when people get set up with the wrong escrow amount when they buy. Like, this one really makes me mad. So let's just say they pay, market value, and, let's just say the taxes are set up at, land value, because that's what happens a lot.
Unimproved.
Yeah. And so they go in there. In fact, let me show you this. I actually have this. I got to show you this. Let me see if I can find the slide. There it is. Okay. So this is an actual settlement statement. Okay. And the property taxes typically are going to be like, $500-600 a month at a minimum, just depending on your exemptions, are going to be somewhere around there. So this particular one, this was like, I think like a $400,000 house. And if you look on here, look what they have estimated for the property tax, $142 a month. Okay. So this buyer, they go into that sale thinking their mortgage payment is, I don't know, let's just say $3,500 a month.
Yeah.
But that $3,500 a month only includes your property taxes at $142.
They're going to add $350 more.
Yeah. And so then the very next year, your property taxes are going to go up and your payment's going to go up. So if it was $3,500, suddenly it's $3,800. So you see how that can that can force you into a situation where being upside down is a big problem, and they do this all the time. I mean, these were our buyers. And so we were telling them, okay, look, and pointing it out to them, look, this is not what it should be. Your property taxes are not going to be $180 a month. They are not. Okay.
So yeah. I think a lot more of the builders are estimating, but still they're not. And it's a lot of times it's not that close. So, I mean, you still have to you have to pay attention, be where it's going to come up. You want to start putting money away anyway for those property taxes.
I mean, if it was me and the lender was insisting on escrowing, I would be like, escrow for the right amount. That's not the right amount. That's not what my property taxes are going to be. I mean, again, typically, you're going to see at least $500 a month in property taxes. So looking at this, and when we're reviewing the settlement statements, the closing disclosures with our buyers, this is one of the first things we look at. We're like, dude, look at this. This is wrong. This is one of those things that can force you to be in a situation where you have to sell. Selling costs money. Even if you don't owe more than it's worth, it still costs money, and you don't want to have to be forced to sell. So 2 examples right there, this is a really bad situation there with the property tax. And this is one of the way people get forced into it. Let me show you a difference, actually. I think this is really telling. This is property taxes in Prosper at land value. So your house is worth $50,000. Your property tax would be like $1,468 a month. So a lot of times when people buy new construction, this is what the house is valued at, because the appraisal district doesn't even know about the house. All they know is land. So you look right here, you can see, net taxable value $50,000. There's your property taxes, right? So you go to closing, monthly payment gets all set up, at that $50 a month maybe. Then your house gets reassessed with the improvement, and now it's worth $1 million. And now your property taxes are $29,000 a year. Okay. So maybe you stretched yourself getting into that home thinking, you knew what your monthly payment was. Okay. And now it's not. Now it's, what is that? So it goes from 1,468 at closing to 29,000 real life. Right. So do you think that's going to force some people to be forced sellers?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It will. It's an opportunity for a buyer that can come in there, but it's really sad for the homeowner who's like, nobody warned me. And this happens all the time. I'm telling you guys, this happens all the time. These are just two of where the monthly payment was so off, and they push it right through underwriting. Okay. They push it right through underwriting and they close on it. And then the buyers don't even know. I mean, like, to me, that is so wrong. That's like, I want to use the word fraud there, except I don't want to get in trouble for using the word fraud. That should not be approved because it's going to put a buyer in a bad situation. I mean, most buyers can't handle to have their property taxes go up by $300, $400, $500 a month. And yet it happens all the time. So that really bugs me. I know one thing too, I wanted to tell you guys, when we think about, like, we don't like where the prices are at necessarily. You really want to get the lowest price you can. We can wait around and want them to come back to 2020, but there's too many buying forces.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're constantly watching, right? We're watching, hey, who's going to win here? Who's going to win? Too much inventory or too much demand? But to the extent that we're not seeing it yet, I really, really recommend taking advantage of seasonality. I mean, you have to, if you have a choice,
of the year, yeah.
If you have a choice, take advantage of the timing of the year. Like you can see on here, in January 2023, the median sales price was $351,000. By June, it was $386,000. And then by January, it was $360,000. Okay. This happens every single year. Okay. Every year you see seasonality like that. Those are our busiest times of the year. Like, we work so hard between, like, October, November, December, January. We close so much then because all of our buyers, not all of them, because they can't always help it. Yeah. But many of our buyers listen to us when we encourage them to not buy in the summer. Although they're kind of like, are you crazy? Like, do you want to get paid? Like, they're like, why are you telling me to not buy? And we're like, yeah, it's not always a good time to buy. Don't buy, because we'd rather them wait for the fall months if you can. Plenty of them can't. Yeah. I mean, honestly, you just can't. And
there's lots of things. Yeah.
And
you gotta move. You gotta,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes
New
you have to.
You gotta get out of the lease.
A lot of times, yeah. A lot of times the lease ends, or they want to be in before.
You just found the dream home. You just gotta have it.
True too. That's true too. Which in that case, and there's also, like I said, there's plenty of areas you can still get a really good deal. The northern side a little bit harder. East, west, south, you can still get good deals. We're just not seeing like this huge correction like we would like to see. But yeah, seasonality is a huge one. When you're buying, make sure you're buying below your means, right? It's another one for making sure that you're not forced to buy. Here's another really big one. Whatever you do, don't buy the nicest house in the neighborhood.
No.
All right, because you're gonna have a hard time selling it.
Look at your median sales price.
Look at your median sales price. Yeah, just don't, because if you think about, like, what if I was ever forced to sell? You don't want to be the $1 million house surrounded by $300,000 houses. Okay. So if you're in the $1 million price range, there's certain areas that are going to be more advantageous for you. And then also, it also goes by neighborhood too. You want to be around in a neighborhood where there are nicer homes. So just kind of thinking in terms of, like, making sure that you're not stuck in that situation. A lesser expensive house for the area is going to be more liquid, right? Shorter days on the market. Now that could be $1 million house, right? In a neighborhood where there's all $2 million houses. So in that situation, $1 million house could be very liquid.
Yeah.
But if the $1 million house is in a neighborhood with $300,000 houses, completely different
or even
situation.
500 or 600. Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to be sitting on the market for a long time. Yeah. If you're motivated, it's going to be harder to sell. Mm. So if you're buying $1 million house, buying $1 million neighborhood or better,
multi-million-dollar neighborhood,
buying a multi-million-dollar neighborhood. Yeah. When we have buyers come to us in the 350 range, there's a lot we can choose from. But our buyers that are up in the 1.5 and 2 million range, kind of, we explain this concept and we're like, it limits us a little bit more in terms of being wise with strategy on where you buy. Because I'm like, I can find you $1 million home anywhere. in any city, but doesn't necessarily make sense from like a median sales price type of situation. I've been really impressed. I've been really impressed that he didn't fall off his chair today. Who else is until that? No, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, like, how many of you guys had money going on whether or not he was going to fall off his chair again? I was kind of thinking about that.
No, I just left this time, remember?
Yeah, he had to get up and leave instead of fall.
I might do that again. Who knows?
Anyway, okay.
Unpredictability.
If you have ideas for something else you'd like to talk about, hit us up, okay? Because we are always going to be objective. If it's a total market crash, we're going to tell you it's a total market crash. If it's not, we're going to be honest with you. You're going to present both sides, okay? So plan on the people lie, numbers don't approach on these lives, okay? We're not going to paint a pretty picture if it's not pretty, but we're also not going to spin a narrative and force the data to go in a direction that it doesn't need to go. So, wow.
No lies data.
Yeah. You know what? Like, we have the gift of gab. Like, we've been in here for an hour.
Well, some of us do.
I want to know who's making dinner. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Who's making dinner? I guess we need to think about that, huh? He's not volunteering.
Maybe a call out.
People, what's for dinner? That's what I want to know. All right. We'll let you guys go. We'll talk to you again next week because we have to go figure. I need a new drink and I need to figure out what's for dinner.
All right.
All right. We will talk to you guys. See you next week.